So these are the tumblers I like to use. This one is a built one. I think I got it at Walmart, but you can also get it on Amazon. And Mossy Oak and Ozark are other ones that I like to use. So the first thing you want to do is tape off the top of the tumbler, and you can use electrical tape like I'm using here. I think this is a little bit easier to stretch and move around, but you can also use painter's tape, and I use both of them. But I just line it up right on the top and just go all the way around, and then the two ends you just want to make sure that they line up really well at the bottom, and then press it down real well. And then the next thing I do is I add a base coat of paint. And so I just use a white. For this one I'm using white because I'm using a white glitter. So I just, I use a tray table, but you can also just walk around it or use a piece of paper. And just spraying it from about a foot back and just back and forth and just keep turning it around until I have probably about, I don't know, a few coats on going it around. And this just helps that you don't see any of the stainless steel below. If you were to use like a silver glitter, then you wouldn't need to paint your cup, but sometimes one layer of glitter on top of a silver tumbler, you're gonna see through that. And then you end up having to do another layer of glitter, and it gets thick and it wastes some glitter. So for this one, since I'm doing ombre, I'm gonna paint the bottom half just with a darker color, and this is just acrylic paint. And you'll notice that I messed up on this one, and I did it pink because I was going to do a different glitter, and then I decided I didn't like it, so later you will see it's brown, but I just repainted over it. And it's just a thin layer, again, just so you don't see the white below it. So then once that's dry, we are going to start adding the Mod Podge. And you're just going to do long strokes all the way down the whole cup. I like using a flat paintbrush because it spreads it pretty evenly and makes it easier to go up and down, and then just going all the way around. And I just put it on my hand and just rotate it around as I'm doing it. And you want them pretty as even as you can get them. And then once you have that, you're going to start adding your top glitter. So I'm doing white here. So I'm just dumping white pretty close to it, just right on top of that white paint there. And then just shaking it off, and make sure you have a piece of paper or something below you to catch your extra glitter, because there will be a lot and you don't want to waste that glitter. So then I'm going to move that one and put a different piece of paper down, and now you'll notice that it's brown, like I mentioned. So I'm just going to put gold glitter on the bottom of this and just put it all over the rest of the Mod Podge and the brown paint down there. And you see that more glitter is ending up down on the paper than probably on the cup. So and I just put all that glitter back inside. So with the paper, it's really easy just to pick it up and just roll it a little bit and dump it straight back into your container. So then you'll want to remove the tape, and make sure to do this pretty quickly before the Mod Podge dries so that none of the glitter comes up, and you'll have a nice line. And then I just put mine top down and just let it dry for about an hour or so. So once that's dry, I just use a flat brush and just kind of run it over it just to get if there's any extra glitter off. And now I'm going to do a little bit more with just the ombre, the middle effect. So what I do is I add a whole bunch of the top color, which is the white, and then just a little bit of gold to it. And then I'm going to mix that around, and I'm just going to put that kind of at the top layer. I'm not overly concerned with my ombre because I know I'm putting other glitter on top of this, and you'll see that when I use the epoxy. That's going to go up and down the whole thing. But I'm just going to put a small layer of Mod Podge right over that. So with this, I'm holding my tumbler at about a 45-degree angle, and then just holding the glitter just from farther above, maybe about like 8 to 10 inches above, and just sprinkling it on, and that will just get less glitter. So then for the bottom half of the middle, I'm doing the opposite. I'm putting a bunch of gold and then just a little bit of white in a little cup and mixing that together. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of Mod Podge just on the bottom half of the middle. And to repeat Mod Podge, you really only need to let it dry for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. And again, I'm doing it at an angle and just from far above and just kind of sprinkling it on rather than the dumping that I did before. And this just allows less glitter to get on it and to kind of give that effect of getting a little bit darker. So I just shake mine to get it off, and then I'm just going to put the Mod Podge on the bottom and then just glitter the bottom. And you don't have to glitter the bottom. This is the personal preference. But I'm just using the same glitter that I just used since it was mostly gold. Okay, so once that's fully dry, we're gonna, overnight, like 24 hours, we are going to apply the first layer of epoxy. So this, I'm doing 2 layers of the electrical tape, just the one on top, just so it goes over so that the epoxy doesn't go inside the cup. And then I'm gonna put another one about 1 to 2 millimeters right above that paint and glitter line. So you want the epoxy to seal over it, so you want to make sure you have just a little bit of a space there. And then again, just following that line all the way around. And then I fold it over a little bit so I have a piece to grab when I'm taking it off when the epoxy's on it. So then again, press it down really well. So now I'm going to mix my solution A and solution B of the epoxy. So I use the Alumilite box that I get off Amazon, and I'm doing about 15 milliliters of each solution. So I measure them out in the little measuring cups separately. And then I'm going to dump them both into, I just use a red Solo cup. And I just use a stick, popsicle stick, and scrape it all out. And then I'm going to start slowly stirring it. And I stir mine for about 3 minutes. I just turn my timer on for 3 minutes, set Alexa for 3 minutes, and just stir. And right now I'm outside doing all of this. This stuff is smelly. So then I am adding just some glitter inside the epoxy itself. So I'm adding a little bit of larger jumbo white glitter, a little bit of some hearts, and then some other chunky glitter that I found. So not a whole lot, but just a little bit, and this just gives it a little extra glitter that goes up and down the whole cup. And then I'm just going to stir that in. So I have my cup on my tumbler turner, and I have a tutorial for that on how to make it if you don't have one. You can always hand turn these too, and I have a post about that. So I'm just going to start adding some of my epoxy, and then just with my gloved hands just go up and down the cup, back and forth, and to get it smooth. And those little pieces of glitter will move as it starts to rotate, but I don't turn mine on right away. I do one, you can see one layer, one section, and then I turn my turner on. It's a little bit easier for me, but you definitely can turn it the whole time. Then I just keep adding a little bit at a time and wiping it up and down. And with the Mod Podge, it really sticks down, so the gold glitter really doesn't come up into the white glitter, especially since I let it dry overnight. I know for some of the other ways, sometimes some of the glitter will come up into the other part, but also again, since I'm adding that extra glitter on top, I wasn't too concerned if a little bit of the gold kind of mixed up into the white. And I'm just gonna keep dumping it on until you have all of it on. And again, like I said, I'm doing this outside because it's a nice day. This is smelly stuff, so you want to be in a really well ventilated area. If I'm inside, I have all my windows open. Another place would be a garage. That would be well. And I know some people have asked why I use the Mod Podge and not the spray like the Loctite. And I don't like to do a lot of spraying. I know I do the spray paint, but I do that outside. I'm not a big fan of like spraying glue because I think it gets everywhere and I don't like the inhaling that stuff. So I just prefer the Mod Podge and thinks it's easier to control. So this part will just take a couple minutes just to get it so you have everything totally covered, and the bottom part too, and just going back and forth and just kind of smoothing it out. And I'm just trying to get every last bit that I can and make sure that every little part is covered. So you'll see I have a pan under mine and then just a piece of paper on top of that. This is just for any of the drippings, because some of the epoxy will drip a little bit, and this just catches it, and then I can just move the paper out and put a new piece of paper when I'm done. Sometimes the paper does kind of glue into the pan, which is fine. It's just an old pan that I don't use for anything else. And then once I have everything on, I like to use my embossing gun, and I just kind of heat it up and just run it back and forth, and this just helps pop any air bubbles that might be there. So I just do, for 30 seconds or so, and I just go back and forth down the whole thing. You can use a hair dryer too. So then I'm going to let this spin for 45 minutes, and then after 45 minutes I'm going to come and remove the tape. So you can have it rotating or you can stop it, depending on what's easier for you. And it's easiest to pull the tape straight up or kind of over towards the cup itself. And I'm just going to tape off the other piece of the tape. If you let the tape stay too long with the epoxy, and I did that on my first tumbler, the tape will take off some of the epoxy. And I have some blue tape still stuck in the top of one of my tumblers, and then it's not smooth where it took it off. And then if I have any little extra, I just wipe it off with just a paper towel. You can use some tea tree oil. I find that helps take off anything, or just a wet paper towel and just kind of rub off anything on the top there. So now I'm going to let this spin for about 4 to 6 hours, depends on the weather. And that will be my first layer. So now that I'm done with the first layer and it's totally dry, I'm going to sand it down. So I'm just spraying some water on it, and then I use wet sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand it down. So especially with the extra layer of the glitter and the epoxy, a lot of times there's some bumps and stuff. So this just helps smooth everything down. And I got the sandpaper in the automotive department of Walmart. It was just in a pack for a couple bucks. And so I'm just sanding the whole thing down, and then I rub my finger over it and just make sure I got all of the little bumps there. And then once that's done, I'm going to clean the whole thing with rubbing alcohol. So I'm squirting that on it and just using some paper towels and just to wipe all the sand stuff, paper that I was using off, and just to get it nice and clean for the decals to go on. So I've cut all my decals out with my Cricut, and you can go to my post and I explain how I made these decals and how I used handwriting of my kids on this one. And I also have this happiness as being a GG and happiness as being a grandma SVG file on the blog post as well. So I'm using a holographic, I think it's opal vinyl for the top part here. And then I made a shadow layer. And I also have a video tutorial on how I do the shadow layers in Cricut Design Space, so you can check that out too over on my blog. So here I'm just layering them first. So then I can pick them both up together and stick them right on the tumbler. And you can definitely use the hinge method that I've talked about before. Since I've done these a lot, I've gotten a lot better about lining them up pretty well. So just stick it on and then make sure it's stuck down pretty well, and then pull your transfer tape paper off. I love that vinyl. It's so fun. It just makes different colors depending on where the sun hits it. So these are all the other little words that my kids and my niece and nephew wrote about my mom, and I transferred them to cut them out in vinyl. And then so I'm just putting those just in random areas all around the cup. And I'm using, to hold my thing, is actually, it's a mini loaf pan that you make bread with, that, the mini loaves, and I have about 4 of them, so I've just, it fits this tumbler really well, so I just put a piece of paper towel in it and just put the tumbler right in it, and it holds it really well. So this is just a real unique and fun way to add, the sentimental touches, and using the handwriting of, the grandkids on here, something that she'll always have. So I love doing gifts like this with my Cricut. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the Cricut, is being able to do all these kind of things. So there I have all the words on it. So now I'm just going to use an embossing gun to kind of heat this up and press it down just so it's sealed real well on there. Usually I'll let them kind of sit for an hour or two just to have them cure. If you don't let them sit for a little bit, sometimes the second layer of epoxy will pull up the vinyl. So now I'm just going to add another layer of tape here. So this one I'm using kind of a thick painter's tape, so I don't have to put 2 rows on. And again, I'm just going right about on the same line there that it was on. And so this tape is nice because it's a little bit thicker, so then I can just go ahead and stick it, fold it over, and it covers the top part of that inside of that mug right there. And then pressing it down real well. And then I'm going to put that on my cup turner. And again, mixed about 15 milliliters of each solution and stirred it for about 3 minutes. And now this one's a totally clear epoxy. So I'm just going to do the same thing and add this right on top. And again, smoothing it down, back up and down with my fingers. And then doing the bottom part too. So I have a good amount on. So now I'm just going to turn my turner on and then just add the rest of the epoxy. So once I have everything on, again, I'm going to set my timer for 45 minutes so I remember to tape off the tape. And then after that, I'm going to let it spin for another 3 to 5 hours or so. And then after I'm done spinning, I still just leave it on there overnight because it still is just a tad bit sticky. And then by the morning time when I pull it off, it's totally done and perfect at that point. So there you have it, start to finish. I know this is only 20 something minutes long. This does take a couple days to do, probably 2 days, just because you have the drying and the turning. But that's it. Nice, unique gift for a mom or a mother, for really anyone to make these cups for. So hope that helps, and please let me know if you have any questions. And have a great day.